Hello everyone! In this series of videos, we will try to build a software that will cover almost all of Luna Park's features so that you can create any SaaS super quickly. So for this example, I chose to make a Trello. We can create lists, we can add cards, we can move the cards. In short, we have a lot of things to do. So I'm going to go to Luna Park. There I arrive on my dashboard, and I will be able to create a new project. This project, well, listen, we will call it Trebo, which means very beautiful in French. And there I come to an interface which is a little empty, and we will work on it right away by right-clicking on the Explorer. I will be able to create a new page, so that's going to be my main page. So listen, we're going to call it main, for example, so we'll meet again later. And you can see at first that there are a lot of new elements that appear on the screen. The first thing is at the bottom left. There I have a block that appears. The block is the equivalent of a div in HTML, if you want. This is what will allow us to contain all the elements of our page. So I'm going to click on it, and there you can see that the panel on the right has changed. And there we can see a little style appear with a plus. So I'm going to click on the plus, and I'm going to click on background. So background, we're going to take a slightly random color, and we're going to take, well, I don't know, red. We'll change it later. And so there I have nothing. Why? Because I didn't define the height. So there once again, I click on it on the little plus and we will change the size. So here I have the height, so I'm going to click on it. And by the way, I'm going to delete my image. That's it, because I feel that it's going to hide things soon. So I'm going to click on the height. And by default, I have a height that is set to 100%. I can click here to make it pixelated, but here in our case, we want it to cover the whole page. So there I have my main container. I'm going to rename it right away. I'm going to call it container. Hop, we're not going to break our heads. And now that it's done, we're going to be able to add new components. The first component that we can put, it can be the little roll band that we had at the top, so the header finally. And to do that, I'm going to go back to my little panel at the bottom left, and I'm going to click on the plus. When I click on the plus, there is a new block that is anchored inside my container that will appear. And if I click on this block, I will have a new style that will be appropriate for it. There. First of all, we'll call it header. Always take the reflex to name all these variables, all these blocks. Now that I'm in my header, I'll be able to click once again on the little plus that's in the style. I'm going to add a new background with a color, and I'm going to give it a size, so a height here. And this time I'm not going to do it in percentage, but in pixels. I'm going to shorten it, and there, already we have directly our header with the little demarcation. Now, I told you that we were going to do something very beautiful. For the moment, when we see that, honestly, it's not going well. The colors are disgusting, and we will have to fix it right away. If we go back to the top, we have our palette, and the palette will define the colors of our project. We have a little personality, and we will change the primary and secondary colors. And we will take something that tends a little towards purple, a little retro wave. I'm going to choose my colors a little at random, and in fact, when I do that, it will offer me declines of these colors automatically. You will see. So there I have that, which is saved. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on my container. And here, in fact, if I click here, sorry, I was wrong, but it's okay. If I click here, there I have 3 blocks that I can use. So that's the color we can choose manually. We'll see that later. And that's going to be the tokens that are generated by the palette. And there you see that we have colors that correspond exactly to the chart that we have just defined. So we already, for our container, in fact, we can choose a primary background. And for the header, we can take something a little darker. So I'm going to do the same, except that this time I'm going to take a background, I don't know, deepest? Is that what it does? There you go, deepest. And there we start to have a chart graph that is consistent. Now it would be time to add a little text because our page looks a bit empty. So I'm going to start by writing my very beautiful chart here, so in the header. And to do this, I'm going to click once again on the little plus under the header, and there I have, once again, a block. But here what we can do is click on the little square, and there, in fact, I will see a list of elements that will transform into this element there. For example, there I will click on custom text, and my block becomes a custom text. There I can directly click on it and type my new text. So I'm going to call it Mon Tableau Trebo. And now, always the same, this text has no style. There must be a certain consistency in my design. So what I'm going to do is click on my header. There I will directly make a small flex display here Direction, I'm going to put it in a column. And then I'm going to be able to do a justify content center. So that's CSS. If you don't know, there are a lot of resources on the internet. Now I can add a little padding, so there you just see that I'm starting to have a lot of stuff. So what I can do is click here to display only the properties that I have defined. So what we want to add is spacing, so a padding, and I'm going to put it at, let's say, 16 pixels. By the way, small aside, but the padding, you can split it into 2 parts, or even 4. You can click on the arrows to have the padding at the top, left, right, etc. Now we're not bad. I would just like to modify my text a little bit. So for example, the font that I'm going to put in bold, and a size that I'm going to put in 1.5 rem. Now I'm going to be able to attack the kind of cards. So suddenly we can have several cards in one and the same place. And this place, well, listen, we're going to call it content in English. So I created a new block here. Be careful. You have to do it here because we're going to do it under the header. This block is going to be a content block. And in this content block, we're going to have cards. So that's going to be a card. We're going to call it card. And this card is going to contain a title, items, and a button to add an item. So what I'm going to start by doing is create a title in my card. So a custom text. The title in our example was to do, I remind you. Why am I doing this? So my card already has content, and I can see directly the changes that are going to apply. The first thing I'm going to do is add a background to my card. So here, once again, I'm going to choose a token that was generated by my palette. The little problem that I noticed directly is that we have a width that takes all the width. So I'm going to redefine it this time by clicking here so that it becomes pixels. I'm going to do it a little bit at random. I'm going to do around 230. There you go. It seems to me not bad. What I could also do is add a padding so that my text is not stuck on the edges. So I'm going to go to spacing and add a padding. Same, always using a token. What I could also add is a radius border to make it a little more modern. And we're going to put 12 pixels, same. There it starts to look pretty good. What I want to do just before something that should not be seen right away, already I can do that so that it is a little more readable. It is to add a flex display with a column direction. Why? Because it will allow us to use the gap later. You will understand. There, I just clicked on my custom text, and something that will be common to all my blocks, it will be a little spacing so that it breathes a little bit. So always the same, we will use a padding S. And there we already have our first block. Why did I do that? Because what I can do with Luna Park is select my component, right-click, copy, or Control-C, and in fact, I will be able to replicate this component by clicking on Map. I will insert 3 text components in the map, so Control-V, Control-V. And so there we have 3 custom texts, which all have the same style. So there I have the padding S that I find here. I would not need to do it again twice. Now we are going to add a little more design. We said that it was a thing that had a bold font, we will say. Here we will have something that will have a slightly different background, a little clearer to unmark the map a little bit. We can also add border radius here in S. So it's already starting to look like something. Right here, I just modified the text to add a little more coherence. It was the planning of the project, it seems to me. And here, so I'm going to do the simple thing. I'm going to write a plus, add a card. So there I already have the base of my card, but I could improve it. Already, the first thing I want to do is, so either I can modify my card or my content so that my card does not touch the edge of my screen. So I'm going to choose to modify content by adding a padding. And now the first thing I want to do is that if I go to preview mode here, that is supposed to be a clickable element. And there I don't feel like it's something clickable at all. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to start by adding a cursor pointer here. And there, already I feel like it's more clickable. Now it's not very modern because we don't have an hover effect. To add an hover effect, so the fact that this little part there, it lights up when the mouse is in contact. I'm going to go back here, and there if you see I have a little hover button, and when I click on it, it will display the style that will be activated when I go to this element. So there, in fact, if I modify the background and that I put a slightly lighter color, so background lightest, sorry. If I hover now, what happens. And there it already makes the thing a little more modern. There I added a card. There you see I put a plus. I used the key of my keyboard. But if we take the example here, there I have the impression that it is a whole icon. So suddenly it takes up a little more space. What I could do is either create two different texts and say that the plus, well, it is bigger. Either I'm going to show you functionality of Luna Park. I'm going to right click on my text and I'm going to put wrap a component so that I put it all in a block. Why? Because there will be two elements in this block. I'm going to remove the plus that I put here. You will understand. And I'm going to add an element here that I'm going to move there. This element is going to be our famous plus. So I'm going to click on my block, and there I'm going to go to UI library. And in UI library, we have a lot of functionalities, in particular one to select different elements that are already done in the Luna Park library. What we want is to use the icon. Once I have clicked on my icon, I will be able to define its property here, the icon, and I will be able to select an icon. There I can see it directly. It is the plus button, which is here. There my plus, it is not very big. We could enlarge it a little more to encourage the user to click on it. So the same, there I'm going to increase its font size by putting XL, for example. And last thing is that now I have to align this. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to do a display flex here and an align item center to align my two elements. So there I have my card, which is ready. And as you saw earlier, what we can do is that if I want to add a new card, I will simply select my card. I'm going to do Control C, click on content, Control V, and I have two cards. There already, we can see that there is a problem. It is that the cards do not display in the order we want. So there we're just going to go back to content and we're going to add a display flex with a gap to space out my cards. We're going to put a 12 pixel gap. And so there, for example, I can put in progress and I can change the text here. I'm going to write Tuto Luna Park. We're going to change that later. Don't worry, you'll see. Last thing I could miss is the button here to add a card. So nothing very complicated. Once again, these are things that we have already done. I just thought of something. It's that we didn't add the hover effect here, but it doesn't matter. We'll do it later. To finish, I'm just going to create a button very quickly. I know we've already seen it, but this time we're going to do it in a different way. So in fact, I just created a block here that I'm going to turn into a UI library. We have lots of components that are already made by Luna Park. And in this case here, if we go to forms, we have button. And in button, if I add a text, for example, add a list, we have a button that is already designed. So there, my button, it doesn't really match the style of my app. So I'm going to change it in off. But that's it. That way you know that we can use the UI library to make components already done if you don't have too much time to deal with it. In the next episode, I'll show you how we can factorize all this so that we don't have huge blocks of disgusting code. Here, for example, if I had 5 cards, it would not be legible, and we're going to solve this.